because everything's bouncing
Listen to her
around.
wheeze down there.
I did. My mom used to do that. Do you remember?
Yeah.
My mom used to, when she'd laugh, it would be. Now I do it. It's like an old
Corey
woman
does
thing.
it.
Oh my goodness.
He does it. He's
It's
been
like
doing
an
it
old,
since he was
old
young.
person thing. I don't know. Anyway. All right. So I guess I'm ready. Let me change my mic here real quick. Okay.
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 And here we are
Here we are.
in the Rabbit Hole Studios.
We're just so happy to be here with Brenda and
It's
her
just so
beaver that
wonderful.
plays around.
It's just so wonderful. We've got some chocolate salty balls here to snack on. And
I love chocolate salty balls. Did you make them yourself, Bobbi?
I did not.
Oh.
I had a friend make them.
Do you have a wonderful recipe for chocolate salty balls?
I
like
might.
I like to lick them.
We've got some warm buns.
Warm buns with chocolate salty balls.
I don't know how they keep a straight face when they do that.
I don't either. It's so funny.
Voice check. Voice check. But man, when it comes to school.
Welcome, everyone, to today's show. Boomer and a Gen Xer walk into a bar, coming to you from the Rabbit Hole Studio, where you, as our listener, will experience some wit and wisdom, some smartassery, and a mother and daughter questioning, are we even related? My name is Jane Burt. My co-host is my daughter, Bobbi Joy, and for the next, I don't know, we'll say 25 minutes or so, we're here to entertain you. So we have kind of a, what do I want to say?
Let's say make over
Serious.
25 minutes. This one might.
This
just
one
'cause
might? Okay.
We might just have to
We
info
might
dump.
disagree. So, Bobbi, what is the topic for today? I think it's kind of a serious one, isn't it?
Well, it could be.
It could be.
You know, our amendments are serious. So we
We're
want to talk
talking
about
about
the first.
The First Amendment, which is free speech, correct?
Correct.
So, freedom of speech doesn't mean that individuals can say whatever they want to say without any type of retribution. But it does mean that we are protected under some, for some of our speech that we have. So let's talk about the
What? It's actually all speech is protected technically under the First Amendment. I'm not saying that it gives you some kind of shield that nobody's going to punch you in your face. What I'm saying is even hate speech is protected under the First Amendment.
We're going to get into this because you and I are going to have a little bit of a disagreement because of anybody who invokes rioting or invokes any type of violence is not covered under the Free Speech Act. So let's talk about that. So freedom of speech is the right to articulate your opinions and ideas without interference, retaliation, or punishment from the government. Talk to me, Bobbi, about this.
Well, what would you like to know? Where do you want to start? Do you want to start at the exclusions or do you want to start at the inclusions?
Well, the term speech is kind of interpreted broadly, wouldn't you say?
It is.
By a lot of different people. And so whether it's spoken or written words, I think that's really kind of where the disagreement comes about when we talk about free speech. So what all does the First Amendment cover?
Oh, what does it cover? Okay, well,
you have to look at it, don't you?
I do, because I was looking at what it doesn't cover more than anything because it covers your speech. It covers what you want to say.
The press, obviously.
Obviously.
And also the right for people to peacefully assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. And so we have that right.
Right.
And so the First Amendment to the U.S. Constitution protects that freedom of speech, religion, and the press. So let's go further. I'm going to turn it over to you because this was one of your topics that you really wanted to talk about this time.
Yeah, and I will throw in there, it also protects the separation of church and state. And I say it protects that because it protects, the state from or the government from having favor to a particular religion over others.
Okay.
So it does protect that, and everybody, well, shouldn't it protect religion in schools and things like that? No, it's to protect from that. So let's get that out there. So First Amendment, one thing I want to bring up is a lot of people bring up the First Amendment online. And I'm talking about social media sites like Facebook, Discord, Instagram, things like that. Even YouTube. On YouTube, it's a big thing for First Amendment. That's a problem because those are private entities. So saying, well, I have the right to say what I want. Okay, you do. But if you're using a platform like Facebook or Twitter or X, I guess it's called, Instagram, YouTube, those are actually private entities that can limit what you can and cannot say.
And along with that, your corporations, the businesses, have a right to limit what you can and cannot say in the workplace.
Absolutely.
So,
absolutely.
And so I think that that's important to note that, people may walk into a business and say, hey, I have a right to say this. No, sometimes you don't. If they have a policy against that, then they have the right to have that policy.
Right. When it comes to, and again, that's also a private owned type thing.
Correct.
That's not a government owned thing. And so, yeah, it's not protected like other things. And I think a lot of people have gotten very comfortable being behind a keyboard, being behind a screen or, a phone where they're recording something and saying things, knowing that, there's not a high probability of them having that retaliation for it.
I think that's a good point. You can get very ugly when someone is not looking you straight in the face.
Absolutely.
You can be very, very bold and very brave when somebody's not looking at you in the face.
Or even, people making fake accounts and saying what they want to say, inciting things online, and they're just really comfortable with it.
Yeah. And, to me, that's kind of, how do I say this? It's kind of yellow bellies. Those who don't have the guts to say it to my face will get online and say it.
Absolutely.
Someone who knows they're not going to face me out in public. They're not going to be at a party where I'm at, and they're going to say something. And to me, that's a yellow belly coward.
And I find a lot of times when people do say, and this has been, over the last just over a year has gotten really bad. When people do type things in comments or say things online, there's times that I've seen those people in public and it is not what they were saying online. Okay. Like they backpedaled so hard. I hope that they stretched before they did it.
Yeah, I get it. The other thing is and I mentioned this earlier, is it does not give you the right to advocate or to instigate some type of violence.
Right.
So that is against the law. And people don't really understand that I have my right. I have my truth. I can say what I want to say. Well, no, not really. You can't. You can say whatever you want as it relates to your thoughts. But once you start advocating violence, that's a whole different story.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's any kind of violence, whether it be direct violence or indirect violence, like yelling fire in a movie theater or saying I have a bomb on this airplane. That's kind of indirect violence, versus walking up to somebody and saying, hey, you're fat and ugly.
Right.
Type of thing. Or,
right.
Hey, those people over there said this, let's go fight them type thing. It's two different things, but it's the same thing. It incites violence. It incites fear, and they're looking to hurt people.
Right. And inciting violence isn't something like, oh, I want to say that I don't like Bobbi and I think she's an idiot and I think we all ought to just ignore her and not be friends with her. Or, even do something relatively low level to her is a whole lot different than to say, let's go to Bobbi's house and let's bomb the place and let's set it on fire and let's go after her and let's hurt her really bad and let's maim her. That's a whole different story. And so there are different levels.
Yeah. And there are exceptions to the First Amendment. There's, like you talked about, the incitement to imminent lawless action is what it's called.
Fighting words, right?
and that's in here too. That's a different part. Fighting words, obscenity. That's like sexually explicit things like that. That doesn't really fall under the First Amendment protection. Something called defamation, which a lot of people know the word, but don't know the actual legal definition.
So tell us what that is.
Do
you know it?
I don't have the legal definition in front of me, but the main thing is okay, let's set up an example. Two people are talking smack online. One person says, hey, Kelly makes crappy cakes and she used her pubic hair to make my frosting. Okay, so Kelly comes on and says, No, this is, okay, I've been through this. This is an actual thing that I saw happen. Okay. I saw go down. So Kelly, comes on and says, you can't say that because that's defamation of character. And she, it goes back and forth and back and forth. And the only way that it's going to be a defamation of character is if she has a bakery business. And it causes her losses or it's something else. It's reputation and things like that. You actually have to, now this is the legal thing, you have to actually have losses from somebody saying something like this.
Okay.
So it's not like somebody, they're just bickering online and talking smack, and she doesn't even own a bakery. So who, it's not like you can take away her bakery people.
Right.
But a lot of people they want to say, that's defamation and things. It's actually not. Y'all are just shit talking and need to quit. So
I got this defamation description off of the Iowa State University website, and it says it's an intentional and false statement about an individual that is publicly communicated in written, which is called libel, or spoken, which is called slander form, causing injury to the individual. Now, for that to be
defamation.
I can't even talk. Defamation, that statement must be an assertion of fact rather than just a mere opinion and capable of being proven false. So, in addition to being false, a statement, must identify its victim by naming or reasonably implicating the person allegedly defamed. So it's not like you could say, oh, that group of people, or there were two girls who did this. Right. You really have to name those people out.
And there has to be injury. And, by definition, the injury would be physical, financial, things like that. Right. And you have to prove that. I mean, you have to prove that this is the reason that I lost $30,000 this year is because this person said this.
And it was detrimental.
And it was detrimental. I have the proof.
Whatever it was.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah. And a lot of people like to use defamation and, you can't say that. Okay, well, yeah, actually they can. What they can't do is they can't be protected under the First Amendment for things like child pornography. That is not protected, thank God. Anything that is called a true threat. So someone interprets a serious expression as an intent to commit an act. So, me coming up to you and saying, I'm holding a knife in my hand, I'm going to stab you. That's not protected under the First Amendment.
Right.
At all.
But here's what really throws me off on that is because if you call the police, if you came up to me and you said, hey, I'm going to stab you, and I call the police, they always say, well, unless they actually do something.
And that's false, actually, in the state of Iowa. An assault can take place with just the threat of words if you feel in reasonable fear of being harmed.
But you've heard them say that.
But I have, yes, so many times.
And it's like, what? She just told me she was going to shoot me. Or she was going to stab me, and that's not enough. And so, I think that absolutely you should be protected. And if somebody says, something like that, those are fighting words. Those are threatening words. Another part of that, Bobbi, is harassment, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And so the Supreme Court in Davis versus Monroe County defined unprotected harassment as unwelcome conduct based on the individual's protected status and perceived protected status that is sufficiently severe, persistent, or pervasive. And so harassment has to be a continued thing. It can't be, I told Bobbi that she's at work and I told her she has to go work on this project. And she says, well, I feel like I'm being harassed.
Right.
Too bad, so sad.
And anybody that's tried to actually get someone for harassment or stalking knows how difficult it is and
Very difficult.
how horrible it is to go through that.
Now, the courts do find, hostile work environments, but
Right.
those also have to be proven.
Right. Well documented, proven, recorded, things like that.
Yep. And so, and I played a role in that because I was senior, I was upper management when I was in my company and, we had to track that. And if somebody ever reported it, you have to investigate.
Right.
And I don't care if it's the first time or what, but if it's reported a second time, something's going down.
Right.
And so you really have to take those things pretty seriously.
Now, let me go back to what, I said in the beginning about the hate speech.
Yeah.
So a lot of people think that first of all, hate speech is not a legal term in the United States. So U.S. Supreme Court actually has repeatedly ruled that most of what would qualify as hate speech in other Western countries is legally protected speech under our First Amendment.
What?
Yeah. Yep. There was a whole court case actually in 2017. So this is pretty recent. It's called Mattal versus Tam. And sorry if I slaughtered that one. But the justices unanimously reaffirmed that there is effectively no quote unquote hate speech exception to the free speech rights protected by the First Amendment, and that the U.S. government may not discriminate against speech on the basis of the speaker's viewpoint.
So why are we facing so many people who make a comment about Trump, or that they make a comment politically, or they make a comment about the religion and they say that's hate speech? Or that's a hate crime.
It's just like
how can that be
the
a hate
defamation
crime?
thing. I mean, people don't understand the actual definition of it once you dig into it. Now, there are some exceptions even to that, because like if you yell racial or sexual slurs towards somebody while beating the crap out of them, they can prove that that's a hate crime because obviously there was a motivation there. But there's no hate speech in the United States. Under the First Amendment, there's no legal.
What about against race, ethnicity? I can't
Ethnicity?
even speak. This is what happens when you get old. You can't even talk.
Well, you're doing the best with the tongue you got.
Yeah,
so.
I guess. Gender or sexual orientation or religion or any other protected status. What about any type of hate speech towards that?
There's no hate speech. That's what I'm saying. It's protected. So let's look at it from the other way. Recently, we had a very nasty racially profiling group in Des Moines that decided to march on the streets with their not so white caps and signs recently. So that's protected. That's hate speech. That is hate speech walking down the road under anyone else's definition. But guess what? They're protected. They're protected.
So I remember, and this is more of a religious thing than anything else. Here this past year, we had Satanists who did a demonstration in the Iowa Capitol, if I remember correctly.
That is correct.
And you weren't there, were you? Because
just keep going.
I'll have to, seriously.
Just keep going.
I'm going to have to
go to sleep.
Go to sleep. Yeah. Satanists and, Satan followers.
Correct.
And there were a lot of people who said, they shouldn't be there. Well, you have the right to do what you're doing, but would they have let a religious group demonstrate inside the Capitol too?
Oh, let me stop you there. They hold Bible study every week in the Capitol.
Okay.
Just so you know, every single week they do. They hold Bible study in the Capitol, in one of the rooms in the Capitol, every single week.
As long as I think they have the right to do it in this country, and I'm not going to say that I agree or disagree.
And we don't have to agree with it. We don't have to disagree with it.
That's what our freedoms are all about.
Correct.
Now where it becomes a problem is when you start pulling people aside, you start humiliating people for their thoughts, their beliefs, any of that. That's when it becomes a problem. I don't care that you have a booth at the fair.
Well,
I don't even care.
You can think
I don't
that
have
it's
to
a
go to
problem,
that
but
booth.
Mom, it's still protected speech. You know, you got the people standing outside of Planned Parenthoods, which, by the way, do not perform abortions at Planned Parenthoods, just so everybody knows. You got people standing out there.
In Iowa.
You refer them on to other doctors. It's not like they're going into a Planned Parenthood to have an abortion.
Let's not act like they don't advocate.
Anyways, the people standing outside of there with their signs saying, "You're going to hell. God hates you. You're a murderer." They're protected.
Yeah.
They are protected. And they're humiliating people. They don't know their circumstances. They are hateful. They are almost to the point inciting at a lot of points, you know, and even places like the Westboro Baptist Church, who demonstrates at veterans' funerals. They're protected. Do I like it? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. And I'll do everything in my power to block those people when that happens. But they're protected.
Yeah.
We don't have to like it. We don't have to agree with it. They're protected.
So let's bring this home just a little bit, because we've talked about what founding fathers felt freedom of speech meant, freedom of, press and that sort of thing. But when we're out and about, and you've got somebody who's in your face, just yelling and screaming and, hatefulness, is that their right to be spitting in your face and getting that close in your...
Spitting is assault.
Yes, spitting is an assault. It is. I'm glad you recognize that. But I mean, I guess I feel like, I think about, because in the state of Iowa, they do still have the Pride event. Okay.
Correct.
And so at the Pride event, you'll always see someone from the churches or evangelizing.
Correct.
And that's okay with me. You don't like it? Keep moving. Keep moving. You don't have to stop. But instead, it becomes an all-out, almost brawl between these people. The other thing is you do sometimes see the churches or sometimes the religious groups who will stand in front of an abortion clinic, right? And I'll be very honest with you, I am very pro-life. If I'm going to choose one between life and death, it's going to be life.
Pro-birth.
Okay. Pro-birth. But do I think that people have the right to stand out there and say what they want to say? I think they do. And if you don't like it, keep moving.
Well,
What's the problem?
And that's the conundrum, because I'm pro mind my own damn business when it comes to those things. And so, it
but isn't minding your own business walking on and saying, "Hey, this really doesn't affect me"?
It sucks. It sucks that certain people do have the right to hold that space just as anyone else would. It sucks. It sucks for a lot of groups, a lot of people, things like that. But the bottom line is, it's protected.
It's protected.
It's protected.
And you have the right to say on either side. You have the right to say what you want to say. Now, if I don't like it, I'm going to keep moving.
Right.
And I think that the problem that I see myself is people take all of this so personally. And, if you deny what I am trying to tell you or what they are trying to tell you, so be it.
Right.
So be it. I'm not going to fight you over that. And there's just so much anger. And so when you think about, what's going on, especially in the political arena right now, I just see so much hate and so much discord right now. And you just kind of want to go, first of all, they don't know your names. But, and they don't care that much about you.
Right.
And so, just live your life and move on, because in 4 years, we're going to be right back at this.
But I mean,
again.
that's politics. I mean,
that is politics.
They use the people to back them and to fight for them and to, things like that. And
so what would be your advice as it relates to free speech?
There's going to be a lot of people out there that, from your opinion, should apologize to trees for the oxygen they waste, but they're allowed to waste that oxygen.
Right.
I mean, keep your hands to yourself, protect yourself at all times. And, That's about all I got. Don't start it, but you better end it.
Yeah. Well, I think it's really interesting because, I mentioned it before. If I don't have a dog in the fight, I'm really not going to get involved. And, do I have a responsibility to try to be reasonable with people? Yeah, absolutely. I want to be kind to people. I want to be reasonable to people. When somebody comes back at me and they're in my face and whatever, I got an opportunity to just keep walking. I don't have to stay there and listen to that crap. I can just keep walking, and they can keep walking too. And
it's all about choices.
Life's all about choices.
It is.
Absolutely. It's all
Choose
about
your own
choices.
adventure book.
So I think that's probably all we have to say today, unless you had something else, Bob.
I don't think so. I think that's all the serious insanity we have for today. And listen, we really thank you guys for joining us every week. If you have any suggestions, any questions, any constructive criticism, we do have our email, which is boomerandgenxer@gmail.com.
And I just want to say something real quickly, Bobby. We got some really good compliments this week.
We did.
And I was so happy to hear from our listeners. And they enjoy what we're saying. They enjoy what we're hearing. They may not agree with us, and that's okay.
And they enjoy hearing us argue.
They
so
do.
That's always good.
They do
there's
enjoy
a lot
that.
of that. So.
And so I just want to tell them thank you for reaching out to us and saying, hey, I really liked that topic, or I really liked how you two played off of each other, and I really liked the banter between the two of you. And we're thankful for it.
Yeah, and we're not going anywhere. We got plenty of show ideas, and we would love plenty more.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, head on over to Facebook at A Boomer and a Gen Xer Walk Into a Bar, the official podcast page. Say hi, like us, share us, whatever you want to do. But keep listening, and we really appreciate you. So until next week, I'm Bobbi Joy.
And I'm Jane Burt.
And you're stuck with us.
Peace out.
Later.